Hello there and welcome to Tech Vibes. I'm Michelle Sklar. Had the opportunity to speak with some of the members of the C100. In fact, we're here with the youngest member of the C100, Brian Wong, who has a company called Kiip. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now with Kiip.
Sure. So very recently we had a little bit of an announcement about some additional angel funding as well. We are right now, we can reveal a little bit more. We're a mobile in-game advertising platform.
Okay.
And so what we're doing is focusing very specifically on the mobile game space, where there actually is no catered ad product right now. The only options available are mobile display ads, which of course nobody likes, and I can confidently say that because no one's ever said, I love banner ads. So we're at... I mean, if you do run into someone who does say that, maybe there's a little bit, I don't know, but yes. So that's what we're tackling right now.
So let me ask you, it's interesting. I think that the world of mobile advertising is really kind of going through this interesting evolution.
Absolutely.
And I think that certainly improvements in technology and, the, greater pervasiveness of different types of handset devices, particularly in the smartphone category, location-based services are certainly playing a role in terms of, more contextualized advertising and sponsorship opportunities. So what is it in terms of an in-game advertising experience that's going to kind of continue to fill out some of the unique advertising opportunities that we're seeing?
Absolutely. So what's unique, you mentioned most of these unique aspects and attributes are from the technologies that are in the mobile devices themselves, right? Like with the location base, with the GPS and all that, and the fact that you're holding the device while you're moving around, and that's also very interesting. Mm-hmm. Now, what we actually think is beneficial about an in-game experience is the fact that it is an experience. So what brands actually are trying to do right now with a lot of their campaigns is they think that being a part of a game or being their own game. So sometimes brands right now are creating their own games, and you're seeing that happening a lot. The reason why they're doing that is because they want people to interact with their brand in the level of engagement that they would normally want people to interact with a game, right? They want that same level of engagement with that game, but with their brand. Mm-hmm. So that's what they want. So if they want that, how can we provide that on a scalable level? Because right now, if you're about to integrate yourself into a game, have like Nike shoes on a Nike player, or on a person in the game who's wearing a Nike jersey, you have to actually change the game for that. So how can you do it without changing elements in the game? And we've cracked that code.
Well, I think that's very interesting. I think that, even through some of the experiences that we're seeing with, the trends of virtual goods and virtual currencies and that kind of thing, I seem to recall that there may have been something in the social gaming space that involved a Tony Hawk game where people, as you won things, there was some product placement involved.
Yes,
so
yes.
I don't know if that's sort of the direction or one of the opportunities that you're, looking at incorporating.
So absolutely not. So what we're not doing,
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying is because, sort of branded goods and branded elements they require, editorial of the game itself. Like the game actually has to be modified. And we think that in order to have a massive scale of reach and having thousands and thousands and thousands of games in our network, we can't make it difficult for people to integrate. And difficulty may be just in friction, just in the amount of resources you have to devote to integrate. And the fact that Nike or a large consumer brand will not work with a small game developer, maybe with a couple thousand players per day. But overall, as a ad network, we can leverage those smaller games and then also be able to do something similar in a scalable way. And so we've cracked that code in a way that I can't talk about right now, which is obviously the element of secrecy there. But what we're trying to do is we understand that there's a leverageable long tail of casual games that have a lot of engaged users across different genres that brands will probably want to be a part of, but they just don't have the resources to negotiate individually with every game to figure out a creative way to get themselves integrated.
Very cool. Okay, so let's talk about your story as a Canadian. You're from Vancouver originally. I mentioned in the opening here that you are the youngest member of the C100. I know that you're fairly young. Doesn't seem to have presented any challenges as far as your opportunities to build, successful business here. But what brought you from Vancouver to the Valley?
So Vancouver, I still call my home, of course. But, what I realized is that in order, especially in consumer web, to really be around people who can sort of help you on a scale that's viral in and of itself, you need to be in an area where there are people who understand immediately what you're doing. And so I'm not saying that people in Vancouver don't understand it. There are, there's a great community in Vancouver,
especially
I think.
In the gaming space.
Sorry, in the gaming space as well. That's why I'm very much so between Vancouver and San Francisco, because there's still that value in being connected to the game developers in Vancouver. And by the way, there are great mobile game developers in Vancouver. And so we fully recognize that and are leveraging that. But what I'm saying is that ultimately being here with with the support in the form of people who have done it many times before, advisors, right, investors, companies to work with. I mean, these guys are literally down the block from us. And so it's the proximity, although a lot of people say is not as important as it was before because of the fact that we have, Skype and all these things now. I still very much so, and a lot of the people in this industry that are successful are very much still old school. And old school in the way of the fact that they still value face-to-face. And face-to-face, and that's why you guys are here right now with the 48 Hours in the Valley, is that ultimately just being there and in person, and I notice this with pretty much every single business relationship that I have, is that everything progresses so much quicker when they're able to see it in your eyes. They know that you're actually in it for real. And the biggest challenge with being a startup and trying to tackle a lot of big hills and mountains to climb is that you need to show people that you're in it for the long haul. And the difficulty behind brands putting themselves behind smaller startups is that they don't really know if you're actually going to be in it for the long haul or just pivot a month later and go, oh, sorry, we were going to do this really exciting thing with you, but too bad. But for us, it's like we have our long-term vision, we have our specific objectives, and they need to know it from you that you're going to stick to that. And that's the biggest aspect of being able to work with these people. And that's what we're able to accomplish by being in this area.
Right. So Brian, most people haven't even figured out what they want to be when they grow up, and when they get into their 30s. What is it for you that just became so definitive that you really grabbed hold of your path at this stage in your life?
So what's very interesting is that by me not knowing what I wanted to do, I ended up figuring out what to do. Because I was so confused that I created a lot of things as a result, right? I was just like, I'm just going to try this smorgasbord. I'm going to pick up and choose from many different things as I think that I have the flexibility to do that. And I did as an entrepreneur, as a creator, right? And so I think ultimately with people who, when you try to set a goal to figure out what to do, you end up screwing yourself because you don't actually give yourselves the flexibility to experiment. So I ultimately say, if you aim to figure out what not to do, you'll actually figure out what to do. And so it's interesting because when I ended up doing my full-time job when I was at Dig, not to say that I really liked it there and I really, credit a lot of what's happened, of course, to what I've learned, the people that I had met there and kind of what I had sort of built myself to gain when I was in that organization. But ultimately, I realized that there were opportunities for me beyond being in an organization where I could create my own. Right. And those are the valuable aspects behind the things that I think that people can really leverage when they're trying to find their own way. Is that if you try to set a path that you want to follow, you may eventually feel disappointed if you're not on that path. And that disappointment doesn't add to anything. Right. Rather, not even have that path, but have several paths that you can just try out. And I think that will give you that mindset to find ultimately what you want to do. And in our generation especially, we've got such a propensity to an acceptance. Before in the previous generations, it says you become a nurse, you become a nurse, or you become a doctor, you become a doctor. You become a policeman, you become a policeman. Mm-hmm. And if you deviate, it's like, oh my God, right? Mm-hmm. But like right now, it's you can change your career, full stop, and people will accept that. It's just a part of our generation right now. And I think that's a flexibility that we should leverage ultimately as entrepreneurs within all of us. I think everybody in my generation has an entrepreneurial spark. It's just finding a way to do true justice to what we're capable of doing with our individual characteristics and our strengths. Right. And that's what I try to help unlock when I go around and I speak and I try to work with younger entrepreneurs to really take that first step. And like I always say, it's, famously, it's to push you off the cliff and teach you how to grow wings while you're falling. I think that's ultimately how you would find your path in a meaningful way.
Well, that's extremely impressive. So just sort of in finishing off here, Brian, again, you're doing great things. You are young, which means that you are still, in the prime of your life to enjoy having as much fun as you are working hard. So why get involved with an organization like the C100?
So the C100 is awesome because, like I always mention, any Canadian entrepreneur that comes down to the Valley is that you need an instant support network. And the great thing is that we've all sort of gone through those first few steps and we can relate. And when you can relate, there's a relationship already, right? And so I say to every Canadian entrepreneur, leverage the fact that this organization exists. I wanted to join it because even though in my very small way, I think that I can contribute to some of the younger entrepreneurs that are also trying to make this leap. And for them to sit down with someone who is ideally their age or within their age group could be very valuable for them to understand that it is possible. I want to be the reason why they realize that it is not just, it's not just about, taking that first leap, but that it is indeed possible, right? And that is the huge message behind everything, is that unless we see the possibilities, we may not feel inclined enough to take that first leap. And so for me, I'm saying, hey, it is possible. I'm here. I'm doing it. Please, it is not as big of a barrier as you think it is. And most of the barriers that people put up are mental. And that is why, it's good to have proof in something physical and the ability for me to talk to them and work with them individually that I think can really help them.
Fantastic. So now as we're finishing off here, a little bit more on the trivia side. I mean, San Francisco is an amazing city. Vancouver is an amazing city. What do you miss most about Vancouver?
I miss mostly the people, obviously. I mean, obviously the city is very beautiful, and it is one of the most beautiful cities. I would say the most beautiful city in the world. I would confidently say that. I mean, San Francisco is also up there as well. So I very much am lucky enough to have had the chance to live in both. But with Vancouver, it is mostly missing the people.
Is there a restaurant or a coffee shop or something that was part of your daily life in Vancouver that is the thing that's like, I wish they had that here in San Francisco?
Yeah, Tim Hortons. No, I'm serious.
There's been consistency in that answer coming up in all the people that we've talked to. Very good. Brian, thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. Brian Wong with Kiip. We've been here talking to members of the C100. I'm Michelle Sklar with Tech Vibes. Awesome.